Stop the recording. All right, Dave, do you want to call the meeting to order?
Sure. Hello, everybody. Welcome. Looks to me that we're one or two bodies short. But Joelle, I'll go ahead and let you do a roll call.
Commissioner Schiavone,
I'm here.
Commissioner Malkin,
Here.
Commissioner Southridge, Commissioner Over,
Here.
Commissioner Fisher, Commissioner Ishikawa,
Here.
Commissioner Lilly, absent, Commissioner Eisenhart,
Here.
Commissioner Lau,
Here.
going back to Commissioner Southridge.
She's
She's
there.
on. Yeah.
Yeah, she's here, just mute.
Okay, Commissioner Fisher.
Here.
Okay. One more, Commissioner Southridge as.
I'm here. I think I'm unmuted. Thank you.
Okay.
Yep.
So the only commissioner absent from this meeting is Commissioner Lilly.
Great. Well, there's been some good exchange of ideas between a number of the commissioners and Joelle with some emails back and forth and some specific questions to the demographers. I don't think that we've merited any changes or corrections to the agenda. So that would just bring us to public comment, and we do have two attendees. Not knowing actually who's. Bear with me here. Okay, so the attendees are district directors, so we're in good shape. With that, there is no public comment because there are no members of the public attending. So I guess that would take us to the action items. And we have in the packet minutes from the Valentine's Day meeting, February 14th. I'd look for a motion to adopt those minutes or any corrections or changes that you might see.
Mark Eisenhart, move to adopt the minutes.
I move adoption of the minutes.
Okay, we'll take that as a second.
And
And
second was from Commissioner Over. Correct?
yep,
Okay.
I think so. And we do now have a member of the public. So go ahead and take roll call for the approval of the minutes, Joelle, and then we'll go backwards and see if a member of the public has any comments.
Commissioner Schiavone,
Yes.
Commissioner Malkin,
Yes.
Commissioner Southridge,
Yes.
Commissioner Over,
Aye.
Commissioner Fisher,
Yes.
Commissioner Ishikawa,
Yes.
Commissioner Lilly, absent, Commissioner Eisenhart,
Aye.
Commissioner Lau.
Yes.
The motion carries.
And great. And in recognition of one member of the public having joined us, I'll just put out the request again for a raised hand if you have any public comment under the public comment section. And the hand is raised.
All right, so just give me a second here. And I'll just have the timer in the background. When you get to the 30-second mark, I'll let you know. And you may present your comment and identify yourself for the clerk's record.
Hello, my name is Connie Murray, and I am a member of the League of Women Voters of Monterey County, and I'm on their redistricting committee, and I'm just observing tonight. So thank you very much for everyone for volunteering to do this important work.
Great, thanks, Connie. All right, with that, we'll return it back to action items. Number 2 is follow up on our last meeting's discussion. I think we'll hand it off to Shelley. Going to take the lead here? Or?
Thank you. I'm going to share my screen because we prepared a PowerPoint that you also had in your agenda. And basically, we did our homework. We hope you did your homework by looking at plans. There's one slide that we added since the packet went out, and I'll alert you to that when the time comes. So this is the second meeting of the Redistricting Advisory Commission. And in terms of next steps, we can have another meeting on March 17th if we need it. There's going to be a board meeting on March 21st to hear interim or final results from this body. There will be a board meeting, and it looks like April 1 to deliberate as well. And Joelle, is that correct? I saw a lot
That's
of
correct.
for an April 1 meeting. And then the board needs to adopt the plan before April 17th. So that's where we are in the process. Just to review, the reason why we're redistricting is that the districts must be relatively equal in population, and they're not based on the 2020 census population. So District 3 in Monterey is too large, so it needs to lose population. District 4 needs to gain population, and the others we can adjust if we want to for other reasons or to minimize the deviation. Now we explored plans 1 and 2 at the February 14th meeting, and I just want to go over some of the points of that. We moved District 3's excess population to what we've been calling the triangle, so that District 3's southern boundary is basically Highway 68 instead of the Monterey city limit. And we're going to discuss that triangle a little bit in detail because we learned some things from the Register of Voters about that. District 3's eastern boundary moved to Sloat Avenue. District 4's population had to increase, and we increased it by adding a little bit of unincorporated area north of Carmel by the Sea. And then the big focus of attention is the difference between plans 1 and 2. Plan 1 is a minimum change plan in terms of the seaside area districts, and Plan 2 forms a different configuration in seaside to maximize the Latinx community of interest. And we were asked to put plans 1 and 2 together side by side so you could see the difference. And essentially districts 3, 4, and 5 are the same in the 2 plans with one exception that I'm going to talk about later. But you can see District 1 and 2 are very different between the 2 plans. This looks very much like the current district. And then this carves out the, concentrates the Latinx community in District 2. Okay, so we did our homework, and this is also an agenda for the PowerPoint. So you wanted to see Plan 1 and 2 maps on the same slide. And so we've done that a couple times. You'll see throughout the presentation. We are showing you the Latinx shares in plans 1 and 2 in that seaside area. There was a request to look at the shares of the population by city, by district. So we'll go through that. There was a request for more description of the triangle, which is the part of District 3 that moves to District 5. We were asked to show household median income by census tract. We were asked to look at homes occupied by homeowners versus renters, which we have data by census tract, and we've added some data also that we got from one of the commissioners. We were asked about the election cycles of plans 1 and 2 and about the Seaside Business District. So let's get started on that. So here again is Plan 1 and Plan 2, and side by side. And here we see District 2 in Plan 2 is that Latinx community, primarily Seaside, but also includes Sand City. And in District 1, you can see that Seaside is split quite differently, and District 2 takes in a lot of Monterey. So in Plan 2, District 1 takes this area that was in District 2 and goes around. And actually, we may change the numbering of the plans to match the incumbents. And I believe the incumbent that lives in District 2 is actually District 1 incumbent. And so if that's the case, then we will change these numbers. And in this plan, each incumbent, no incumbents are paired by district. Okay, you asked to see the Latinx or Latino distribution concentration, and we've overlaid that on plans 1 and 2. So here we have Plan 1, which some ways splits the Latino area, and that's similar to the current plan. And here we have tried to consolidate that as much as possible, but yet use very reasonable boundaries, very identifiable boundaries, and to follow neighborhoods as well. This is a comparison between plans 1 and 2 of the Hispanic share in districts 1 and 2 between the two plans. So in Plan 1, which is similar to the current plan, the Hispanic population is fairly evenly split. And so this gives them, say, among registered voters, a fourth to a fifth of the voters in each district. So it's not enough to elect a representative of their choice. In Plan 2, we have a concentration of the Latino population in District 2, what we're calling District 2, at 58%, which turns out to be almost a third of the registered voters. Still not required by law under the Federal Rights Act, because you need to be actually you look at CVAP and you need 50% or more CVAP to be required to do this.
So it's not required.
Pardon?
I'm sorry, I thought it was actually 52% from the last week, but it looks like it's not 52%, it's 47%. Okay, clarification, thank you.
Okay. So it concentrates, District 2 concentrates the Latino population, but it is not required by law. It would be if it was stronger. But you may want to do it in the spirit of the Voting Rights Act too, or you may want to do this just to consolidate a community of interest. Okay, now we had shares of cities. We had a request to see how the cities broke down in each of the plans. And first of all, I just want to alert you to the bottom part of this table. A lot of the districts are not divided by city at all. Carmel Valley Village, Carmel by the Sea, Del Monte Forest, Pebble Beach, Pacific Grove, and Sand City. But where they are divided, we can see this in the current plan. There's just a little bit of Delray Oaks that is in District 1. And in the other plans, it is not split. In District 1 and 2, it's not split. Monterey is almost 1/4, 3/4 split in the current plan. And Plan 1 and Plan 2, it's similar, 25, 69, and 6%. And this is because we've got to reduce the population in District 3. So that ends up splitting more of Monterey into another district. And then finally, Seaside, in the current plan, it's 69% in District 1, 31% in District 2. In Plan 1, it's 67-33, did not change that much. Plan 2, 34 and 66, again, did not change much. Again, the numbers, this numbering could change, so don't worry about that part. So that's the distribution of the cities by district, by plan. Okay, now we want to talk a little bit about this triangle, which is the population that moves to District 5 in both plans 1 and 2. So there are actually two components of this, and we studied this a little more, which was useful for what I'm going to tell you in a minute. But the bulk of the population is the people that live in the military housing, La Mesa military housing, 1,837 people. Very small percentage are registered or actual voters, 330 registered voters and 267 actually voted in the last presidential election. Now, there's this funny little area that we noticed because I did it by mistake. I put these 18 people in Plan 1, they're in District 3, and in Plan 5, they're in Plan 2, they're in District 5. So I went to explore this a little more. These 18 people live in an area that's east of Highway 68. Actually, let me go to the, let's see, let me go to this map here. So there's this little census tract, and it's in the city of Monterey. And I was concerned that if we use 68, we were proposing let's use 68, Highway 68 or 1 as a dividing line, because that's a really natural dividing line. But there's this little sliver of a census tract on the other side that's in the city of Monterey. And when you do that, sometimes you end up creating a new portion of a precinct. So we talked to the Register of Voters, and sure enough, this would cause them to do a portion of a precinct, have to do ballots, special ballots for this area, print out stuff, have it available. And then the other interesting thing is there are no houses in this sliver, but there are tents that we could see from satellite. So the good news is I think that they counted the homeless because it looked like there were a homeless encampment. So these 18 people were there. There are no, even though the data we have from the statewide database says there are 7 registered and actual voters, the actual Register of Voters of Monterey County says there are no registered voters in this area. And that could happen because the statewide database takes a precinct data and then they just proportionately divide it by census block. So they allocated 7 people, but there are actually no voters. So anyway, the upshot of this is that I think what we'd recommend is to go along the city limits up to this point and then go along Highway 68. And it turns out this is also what the city council, they just redistricted, and the city council followed this same boundary. This part is in one district and the rest of this area of Monterey is in a separate city council district. So that's another reason it would be convenient to do that. So that may be too much more detail than you needed, but the upshot is, unless you think for some reason you don't want to do it, we'd suggest we keep this census block in District 3. And I see that there's a hand raised. If you have a question about this, maybe we should stop and take it. Or I don't know, maybe we should finish and then come back to this. I don't know. Dave, what's your pleasure on this?
I was on mute. Let's go ahead and find out what the question is.
Okay. Commissioner Malkin?
Yes, so I'm just curious about these tents and how they were spotted, and we know they're not registered voters, because we do know that there are a number of other tent areas. And I'm wondering how those people are counted, or is that overlooked? Or, I mean, how do they get incorporated into this, at least as the way these guys did?
Yeah, this is up to the Census Bureau and what actually happened. And what we were just talking to the Register of Voters, and they had a satellite view of this census block. And they said, there are no homes in here. And I said, well, there are 18 people. There must be, I wonder if they're homeless. And when they zeroed in on that ground, you could see some tents. So that's how we know they're counted. I mean, I don't know about any other areas. You'd have to.
How did those 18 people, even though there are no homes there, how were those 18 people found out?
That would be the Census Bureau, or even the city of Monterey might have sent people to make sure that they got counted. I'm not quite sure what the process was in Monterey County. I know in Salinas, they did a lot of the local agencies. It's in their best interest to count as many people as possible. So I know that in Salinas, at least, they sent some of the city workers, employees out to try and count the homeless and make sure they were counted. But I personally don't know how different jurisdictions went about counting the homeless. But let's keep that for later, because that actually isn't that germane to this process. It's interesting, for sure.
Well, I'm just interested in, if we're considering these 18 people, how many may be left out? Because we do have a significant homeless population on the peninsula.
Yeah, so the good news is that's why I was delighted to see this. Like, great, they counted these homeless people. So it's a good sign. But regardless of whether they're counted or not, we've got to use the census data, however it comes to us. So even if we knew there was an undercount or an overcount, it doesn't matter. We have to use, by law, we're required to use the census data as adjusted by the statewide database for the prison population.
Okay, so who would I ask about that? Is it the city or the registrar, or?
I would say ask the city what they did to count the homeless.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that would be a good step. Okay, so we have more, so we wanted more information on this triangle, since this is the part that we were moving from District 3 to District 5. And so we have a couple maps for you to see. And I may ask Robin to help me with this, but because she found these maps and made some of them. So here is the population. You can see sort of the housing units in the military base. And this is the bulk of the area that we would be moving. There's basically no population in this area.
Yeah, I think that there's a hospice in that gray area.
In this area?
Yeah.
I think there were no one counted. We had a census tract with one person. I don't know what happened there. It might have been another homeless person here.
I was just gonna say that area probably does have some homeless in it. That's why I think it's important for us to find out.
Yeah, the thing is, the Register of Voters had no registered voters in that area. And it doesn't mean they can't register to vote and they can't vote. They can still vote. It's just whether they're in District 3 or they're in District 5.
Well, we also did the last census during a pandemic. So
yes,
unfortunately, these numbers are not going to be the best, and we're redistricting around them.
Yes, that's true. Yes. So this, Robin, if you could, when you get a chance, just indicate if there any population in this area. And I'm not sure, I'm not sure what the census block distribution is here
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah, Shelley, I have that up on my screen right now. There are 2 blocks with small populations. One has one person and the other census block has 18 people.
So is the 18 we've been talking about?
In addition to that,
Oh, in addition to that, there's another 18.
yes.
Okay. What do you want to, can you share your screen? I could stop. Share. Okay.
Yeah, I have Plan 1 up right now and I can
Okay.
share that with you. Do you see the Plan
Yes.
1?
Yeah.
So here's the census block with 1 person, and then here's the census block with 18.
Oh, yeah. Mhm.
And I believe that hospital, that
Yeah, it's going to be
Right
right
around
there.
here. Mhm.
Yep. Yeah, it's kind of between them. It's called Westland House, and it's a CHOMP facility that's a hospice.
Mm. Well, good. It sounds like they counted those people then. This entire area is in one city council district. So that would be another reason to include these additional areas with La Mesa military housing in District 3. Oh, no, it's going into District 5. Never mind. Yeah.
The other ones.
So this entire La Mesa housing, and if we take the 18 and the 1, that would all be one ballot probably then, would get the same ballot. So it's funny, this might have been the map that we should have developed in the PowerPoint that we didn't send you. Is there more anybody would like to see about this? Okay, then Robin, why don't you stop sharing so I can then go back and share where we
All
are.
yours.
And we can go back to that later if you want. Okay. So that's one map of this area. And then this is another from Google Maps that you could bring up if you wanted to, and just gives another look at this area here. And I believe this is our dividing line, right? Robin, on Wahita Road. Here.
Yes, that's correct, Shelley.
And then Highway 1. Okay. And then we've talked about this. I just wanted to point out, oops, that the green is Monterey, the city of Monterey. So all of this area is unincorporated below here. And that's why this census tract is important. It's the only one that is like sticks out. So what we're proposing is that this boundary line go along the city limits of Monterey, and then at Soledad Road, Soledad Drive, to then follow Highway 68.
Is that dividing line essentially Munris Avenue?
No, Munris Avenue is here.
Well, the one that isn't going up to Sunridge. Oh, I can't tell where the dividing line is.
Well, it's Highway 68 here.
You're saying
this is Agua Hida. I think this. So that's the dividing line. So, but instead of going all the way down 68, we're just saying take this little census block, and that stays in District 3 with the rest of Monterey. So they don't have to do a separate precinct.
Okay.
Portion precinct.
Now I understand. Thank
And
you.
especially since there are no voters. I mean, they would have to like print things and do extra things. If we just kept this little sliver in District 3, they don't have to do that. And they wanted me to be clear that they're willing to do it. They were very clear that their job is to do whatever you all decide. It's just inefficient. Commissioner Eisenhart.
Thank you. So I'm sorry if I'm a little confused. Going back to the beginning of your presentation, Monterey was the only city of all the cities that was trifurcated, right?
Because it's so large.
Right. Is that still going to be the case if we refigure Division 3 to encompass all of the southernmost portions of Monterey?
I'm not quite sure. We're taking this part out and putting it in 5. 5 currently doesn't have any part of Monterey.
I see.
So
And
we're
putting it-
taking this piece, and you know, the fact that it's the military housing, there's less voters here, maybe less connected to Monterey because they're more transient. It's like instead of taking a traditional neighborhood, it seems like a better choice of splitting that off. We have to split some part off because 3 is just too large.
No,
So
no,
the
I
question-
understand that. I guess, and my question is more of a demographer question, right? Which is, if you were able to, the observation is Monterey is the only city being trifurcated, right? When everybody else is only being bifurcated or not even.
Mhm.
And what we haven't explored, and maybe because it doesn't matter from a demographer's perspective, is there a way to bifurcate only the city of Monterey if we're looking at cities, if we're looking at municipalities, to
Mhm.
limit the breakup? And is that from a demographer's perspective a factor or a goal, or is it just not?
It's often a goal to keep the cities together. And I'm just going back to this map because I want to show you what it would mean. It would really change the configuration a lot. So District 3 could be like this, but then we would have to consolidate, like this little piece would go over into 2. And we'd have to follow the Monterey, we'd have to put this into 2. Basically,
Right.
we'd have to put this area or some area. Maybe we put this area into 2.
Right.
And then 2 would get too large and we would have to take out, a part of 2 into 5. So
You're right back into the same problem again, it sounds like.
I think so. I can't, we don't have on here the total district. I wish we did now. Let me just see, do we have it up here? So there might be part of this area. I don't know if this is Monterey. We have Delray Oaks here. Just don't know if we have. So there
That
could be-
area is unincorporated.
Yeah, okay, so, but I don't think it's that populated. I don't know if it would make up for the
Laguna
fact.
Seca Estates.
What's that?
Laguna Seca Estates.
Mm-hmm. And Ryan Ranch is around here too, and yeah.
Yeah, it's populated.
Mm-hmm. So if
I mean,
we
I-
wanted to keep, so yeah, I guess another possibility is if we keep 3 like it was, and then we move this part over to 2, it's possible we might be able to take enough population out and put it into 5 and keep Monterey just in 2 districts. I
Well,
just don't
and-
know if the numbers would work out, but maybe we can work on that at the end of the presentation, and maybe I can get Robin to start thinking about that configuration.
No,
as
and
we're-
I don't, let me just say, and this Commissioner Eisenhart, the reason why I bring it up is not to stir the pot. It was more because frankly, when you look at the map, and thank you for putting this slide up, right? It is very clear that Monterey is a central division. I mean, It is bordered by 3 others, and it's populous. So it kind of makes sense that there's a trifurcation, right? As opposed to mere
Sure.
on the one hand. On the other hand, well, no, and mine was more of just a question. I mean, we had that conversation, which was quite illuminating, about constitutional issues and factors and things we look at. And I was just wondering if the splitting up of one municipality more than others is a factor, is a concern from a demographical perspective. And if it's not, I'll let it lie. You know, I was just questioning.
It is a concern. I mean, that's why, you know, District 3 was too populous. District 4 wasn't, it needed population, but I didn't want to disturb this city limit line.
Right.
Right. So yeah, we want to take it into account when we can, but it's one of those optional considerations. I do think it's worth looking at. So you bring up a good point. You know, we could keep this in 3 and follow the city limit boundary and move some of this into 2 and just see if it would work to then put more of this in 5. So let's just see if it works, you know?
Yeah, I mean, and then the sort of the converse to that is that Highway 1 boundary between North Monterey and Monterey is, I mean, I think psychologically it's a significant boundary. People really know it's on the other side of the freeway.
Yeah, this here.
Actually, farther north, right? Yeah, there.
Uh-huh.
I mean, that is a very, very pronounced demarcation, not just because it's an elevated freeway there, but you know, I think people in the community have a very different, you know, sense of one side of that elevated freeway versus the other. It feels like a natural break. You know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah.
So anyway, just throwing it out there.
Yeah. Okay. I still think Robin could explore that while we're going here, though we're almost toward the end. Okay, so let's see. Here's this triangle. Okay, then we were so going on to a new subject, we were asked to map the median household income and to look at that. And my guesses aren't too many surprises. The darker the color, the more affluent the area. And what we are most concerned about is the seaside area, because that's where we were changing between Plan 1 and Plan 2. And as expected, this area has a lower income level than other parts of the district. So I guess not too surprising, but we wanted to show you that, to ask for it.
And in that, I'm sorry, this is Commissioner Eisenhart, that lowest area in Seaside
Yes.
with the lightest of the green, yes. Is that 100% in Plan 2 for Division 2?
Yes.
It is. The question is, I'm just wondering if it is also in where it is in Plan 1, which I offhand can't tell, but almost all of this area is the district in Plan 2.
Okay, thanks.
Then we were also asked about owners and renters. And this is from the American Community Survey. It's a survey and a small sample of the district. It's by census tract. And these pies indicate the size of the population and whether and then the colors, whether they're owner occupied or renter occupied. The green is renter occupied. So like I imagine these are the dormitories, perhaps in the census tract, that's why it's highly green here. And you can see the other distributions. Here it mainly owners, where you would expect. Actually, I think this is a lot of owners comparatively for the area that was relatively low income. So that's kind of interesting. But other parts here have more renters. You can see that, more renters. And the next slide is something you don't have in your packet, but we, one of the commissioners got data on, from the, I assume the assessor's office. I wonder if the commissioner would like to talk about it. But what we did is we mapped houses, condos, and duplexes that were rented.
Wow.
In Seaside. And so what these dots represent people that are in rented houses, rented condos, or rented duplexes. And then we overlaid Plan 1, the division in Plan 1, and the division in Plan 2. And I think basically what the upshot of this is that more of the renting households are in Plan 2, and they're kind of divided in Plan 1. That's how I would read this. They're more consolidated here. And that again, sort of conforms with our knowledge of the area. Joelle, please.
I don't have a question.
Oh,
don't know how
and
we got
so
there.
you had a raised hand. Okay. But I have I have a lot of participants that raised hand, and the commissioner that got this data, do you want to speak about this a little bit?
You mean me? Yes.
Probably, yes.
Yeah. So I was just curious where you got, where this renter data came from.
Oh, well, we got it from, let's
I
see.
believe that was from Commissioner Schiavone.
Oh, I see. You,
Yes.
but I sent you and plotted it out.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. I got that from the city of Seaside. It basically was a list of addresses where renting was happening and where people had homes they were renting out.
But you don't know how, the city of Seaside doesn't have a rental registry, so how do they know
don't.
which?
I think I
Not
can
sure.
answer that. It looked like to us, we often get data from the county assessor's office, and it looked like that same format from the county assessor. And the assessor knows that because, so it's somewhat necessarily always, well, if you claim a homeowner's exemption, you're considered in there. But if you do not claim a homeowner's exemption, then typically it's rented. And that's where the data come from. If you do not put in a homeowner's exemption.
Got it. Thank you.
Are there other questions about this data? Because you didn't get a chance to get it in your packet. So basically we took these
Commissioner Lau.
addresses.
Commissioner
Yes,
Lau has her.
thank you for this. So my question is, if we're doing this primarily for the water district, and may I ask how often would it come to these populations to actually have a vote? And is having more renters in a block, if it's an important vote? I just don't really very specifically to this and this map that we're creating, because as I understand, this isn't going to be a map that's going to be a general election vote. It would be very specific to any water management district vote, or no? I really am asking, I don't know.
Yes. So these are the district's voter divisions, by which 5 of the directors out of 7 are elected. So it would have impact that way
Okay.
on who the individual representing that, you know, that block would be. So for example, in this this case on the left, the renter community would be split between 2 different directors.
Okay.
Is all the implication shows. And you know, when you think about the water district, I think we probably impact owners more so from the standpoint of fixtures and title transfers, you know, updating the installed plumbing fixtures to be consistent with code. And renters might be more affected by water rates and the Measure J takeover and that type of thing. So, just different thrusts of impact, I guess.
Okay, thank you. That's very helpful. And then also just if we're concentrating perhaps non-native speakers in one area, is that a consideration? And traditionally and historically, how many of your board members have ever been from those communities, or if that would be different?
Yeah, so right now, the directors in the two plan, plan one, plan two, in the voter divisions 1 and 2, one director comes from the Monterey section over by the boundary near the La Mesa housing. So, kind of nestled in that sliver of Monterey. And then the current Division 1 director is a resident of Seaside, in Seaside. And I think we've determined that he would remain in his voter division. He wouldn't be districted out. But we've never had speakers of another language elected. And when we've had large scale meetings where we've had translation services available, seldom were they utilized. Certainly not many of the arcane languages, or there's some, gosh, I don't know, doesn't City of Marina claim that there's over 30 languages spoken there? We've never had much more than a request for Spanish translation.
Thank you. That answers my question. That's very helpful. Thank you.
Okay, shall I go on? All right, so then going on to another item is the election cycles. And we had this from one of the commissioners concerned that we don't want to have more people waiting 6 years to elect someone if we don't have to. And so I just want to explain this. Voters in districts 1, 2, and 3 elect directors in the same year, which will be next November. So people moving between districts 1, 2, and 3 are not going to have their election cycle disrupted. And similarly, voters in districts 4 and 5 elect directors in the same year, November 2024. So anybody moving between districts 4 and 5 would not disrupt the election cycle. In both plans 1 and 2, the only voters who would wait 6 years rather than 4 for the next director are those moving from 3 to 5. And that is this triangle that we have been talking about. So at the moment, that's the proposed area that we would move. And so there's no difference between plans 1 and 2 in the amount of people shifting their current election cycle. So if we consider a different plan, and I think Robin has a different plan that she's going to show us in a minute, that might change. But for now, it's those that move between 3 and 5. And in this other plan 3, we're going to see in a minute, they're moving between 3 and 2. So that would not be a problem in that way, but we'll look at that in a minute. Are there any questions about the election cycles? Okay. So finally, it's a little hard to see. This is not a map that we did, but we got off another site. And this is trying to show the business district in the Sand City and Seaside area. And the pink is the business district. So there was a discussion last time about where is the business district. And so you can sort of see it on this map here. So we just wanted to give that to you for clarification. Okay, So that ends our formal presentation, but I think unless you think otherwise, I'd like to have Robin share her screen, and she has a possible Plan 3 to show you, which keeps the Monterey City limit more intact, or in 2 different districts.
And before we go there, can you go back to
Okay.
that last slide again on business districts?
Yeah,
Because I know we're looking at Del Monte Boulevard and Fremont Boulevard, but Broadway might be bisected. I just want to have a quick look at that.
okay. And is Broadway on here? Is that-
Yeah, so Broadway is going to be probably that yellow line.
Oh, up here, yeah.
Okay.
No, down south. So like through the T in Fremont.
Oh, here, yeah. Yeah, so there is some pink area here.
But it doesn't get cut in 2. That's good. Because there's been a huge investment in kind of bringing in new businesses to Broadway, making it more like a Main Street USA kind of feel.
Hmm.
But it seems intact. Thank you.
Okay. All right, any other questions on the PowerPoint?
Actually, this is Commissioner Eisenhart. Dave, I was hoping you can comment on an earlier question, the way the district impacts residential owners versus residential tenants, and extrapolate that out to how the district impacts businesses versus residences, since we're on the business district.
Yeah. So the rate structure is different for non-residential than for residential. So all commercial businesses are in divisions where it has to do with compliance with industry standard for conservation and so forth. So it doesn't matter whether you're a hotel on Cannery Row or an office in Ryan Ranch, the business rates are going to be the same throughout the system. Residential homeowners, when a home is sold, there's a requirement to get an inspection to look at retrofits. So there can be an expense typically on the home seller to bring everything up to current compliance. So there is a specific activity that hits residential property owners. And frankly, if they want to renovate or put an addition on, in order to get your building permit, you also need a water permit. And not dissimilar for non-residential, commercial. If you want to build something, you're going to need a water permit as well. But I think that from the standpoint of voter participation, I'm not saying that the business owners are agnostic, but I think it's less relevant to the commercial side than it is to the residential side.
Okay, thanks. I thought so. Plus a business owner who knows where they actually live, that's where they're going to be registered to vote, right?
Exactly. And a resident is going to call an Alvin Edwards or a George Riley based on where they live first. And a business owner is going to call whoever he thinks is the most pro-business guy on the board. So.
Got it.
Commissioner Oliver, did you have a question?
My question was answered in the discussion.
Okay, great. Okay, why don't I stop sharing my screen? Would you all like to see a Plan 3 that Robin developed that follows? Yeah, okay. So Robin, go ahead and share your screen.
Okay, can everyone see the map on the screen?
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. So we started with Plan 2. We could have started with Plan 1, but I chose to start with Plan 2. And I moved this area of the triangle here from 5 to District 1. And that brings, and then as a trade-off, moved moved this unincorporated area here from District 1 to District 5. So still leaves District 5 at 5.8%, District 1, I'm sorry. Total plan deviation as it is right now is 9.1%.
So that's within the legal limits. Robin, did you have a chance to check whether incumbents are still in separate districts?
Yes, they are.
Mhm. Fantastic. I don't know, I kind of like this better. We followed the Monterey city limits on that, but what do you all think? I guess one negative is that we've got this sort of wraparound
It's
District
huge.
1.
Yeah.
So
Well-
it's partly Monterey and partly some
Yeah,
areas.
and it contains a great deal of former Fort Ord open space that will never have homes on it or voters in it. So,
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Oh, do you know what the population is in terms of the seaside area that is up in that 2 area that goes up towards the Fort Ord area? Do you know
Yeah.
what the population is on that side? It's not in 2, but in 1.
Well, we know that a third of Seaside in general is in District 1 because of that
Okay.
city distribution. And there's a little bit south, I think, of 2, yeah, where Robin has her cursor. But, you know, in general, this whole, yeah, so it'll be a little less than a third then.
Okay.
And here we have the population counts on it, but it's a little hard to tell, you know, to accumulate that. And we might be able to refine this a little bit, like, I wonder if we could increase 2 a little bit, like Robin, if you go down to the city limit of 2, and that would bring the deviation of 1 down. That might be a little
Because
better.
my question is, I'd just like to see more of Seaside be together.
I know,
as-
so
as
that's what
much
I'm
as I
suggesting.
could see.
Yeah, like if we did the bottom part of Seaside, is the gray area Seaside? Do we have the city showing, Robin?
Yes, that's
So, yeah, let's see what happens if we put that in, because it might help the deviation too.
I have a question too. I know we have a municipal water district in Seaside. Do they vote in our elections?
yes,
Okay, so they are in the district.
yes, and we have some voters who are able to vote and they receive no service whatsoever up near Seaside Highlands.
Oh, okay.
And that's what Director Edwards was referring to at the recent board meeting, which, you know, certainly if Measure J goes through, then the overlap between Marina Coast Water District and our water district would have to be addressed. But we've talked at length about addressing it anyway. And so right now Marina Coast Water District is not a taxing agency. We are. So we do have some benefit of revenue from these properties within our area, even though they're not directly served by either CalAm or Seaside Muni.
So my big ask is, can we get as much Seaside in one district as possible? That's all. I know you have to do balancing acts to make this happen, but that was what I'd like to see.
So Robin, what happens if you do that?
if we do that, it brings District 1 to 1% and District 2 to 5.1%.
Okay, so we could do that. We're probably, the only negative is that we're probably reducing the Latinx percentage. But I think in the city is very important, the city limit. And I think that, I mean, that's a really nice plan to be able to use the city limit.
I like that.
Commissioner Eisenhardt.
Yes, thank you. I have a real happy face about Plan 3. First of all, I like Plan 2 for what it's worth, because I like to see Sand City brought into Division 2 the way it is. If I remember correctly, it wasn't in Plan 1, if I'm not mistaken, and it feels very contiguous. It feels natural. I like that. Now, are we getting dangerously close though to that 10% threshold with Division 3?
Well, it's not Division 3,
I'm
it's
sorry,
Division 2.
Division, I apologize.
No.
Division 1 and 2, right?
Yeah, so actually, because we moved the bottom of the Seaside area, the southern part of Seaside into District 2, that became the large district at 5.1%. But the overall deviation just needs to be under 10.
So we're
So-
way, okay, yeah, so
So
we're good.
this is 8.4, I think. And we might be able to work on this, tweak it a little bit.
Yeah.
Because, this is what we do, like you get an idea and it looks good, but sometimes you can even improve it a little more. Like maybe, I don't know, what's the vertical, that line between 1 and 2 on the east, top east, northeast, between 1 and 2? Yeah, what is that? Is that a good street?
That General Jim Moore Boulevard?
No.
No,
Up
the other
here,
one.
it's
Yeah,
Yosemite.
the one.
up here.
Yosemite.
Oh, Yosemite, yeah.
What if could we move that over? Robin, is there a good street? Can you zoom in on that? And what do you all think of Yosemite? Is it okay if because if we could split this a little more, and I don't know, can you turn on the Latinx blocks? Robin, it's a lot to ask you to do if that's set up.
There's a school on the bottom part,
Yeah,
so it becomes more of a natural boundary. I think it's also a bus route.
Yosemite, it's a huge, it is the main road through the top of Seaside.
and how
for
about the
emergency
bottom?
vehicles, buses, everything.
Okay, so how
Until
about,
you get to General Jim Moore.
so is it Commissioner Ishikawa? Were you the one saying that about the school?
Yes, I
Who's-
think on the bottom corner, I think it's the Seaside Middle School or the International School.
Well, let
That's
me
on-
just ask, if we continue down Yosemite and move that into District 1, does that make sense?
I don't get what you're saying, actually.
Like if we move, yeah, Robin has it, this area right here.
This area.
That's the Mescal Avenue area.
That's a pretty big, well, yeah, that's up on the hill on Mescal.
So Robin, if you just took that until, is it Hilby? Just move those.
The Hillby, okay. That would bring District 1 to 5.2%. No, that's,
Oh my God.
yeah, 5.2, and then District 2 at 0.9%.
Okay, so that does not help us, but would you,
Not a
it's sort of
population.
the same. Is this better or worse? And maybe it depends on that Latinx distribution too. Let me go back to that.
Yeah, I don't have a way to overlay those.
Okay, let me just look at this, open this up again. Let me share my screen for a minute.
Yep.
Just so we can,
There you go.
okay. Just to remind us where that is. So here we are at 2, and we were suggesting dropping this part, which is a low Latino area. So that would be okay because we've added this part essentially. So the question is taking out some of this. If we took out just a little bit of this, we would balance the population more, but we can't take that whole area to Hilby. Is there another natural break? All right, I'm going to stop sharing now. But anyway, just so you all see, this is the area we added, the seaside, and maybe we can take this away. So Robin, you want to share your screen again? And
Yeah,
can
I
you
guess,
zoom
you know,
in?
maybe as a starting point or as a check-in point, just polling our commissioners as to which way they're leaning Plan 1 versus Plan 2. I think that the movement of the triangle piece was real good progress and did meet Commissioner Eisenhardt's stated objective to minimize the trifurcation, if you will. You know, and I know that Seaside is pretty much the largest populace, so it has to get bifurcated as well in order to keep these things going. But are the commissioners leaning more towards Plan 2 or Plan 1 with the shapes of divisions 1 and 2? Because that'll better inform where you're trying to take a bite of population and shift it around.
Well, you know, last meeting, what my impression was is that we have a 52% of voting age Latino population if we go with Plan 2. And if that's the case, then when I'm reading the law from different sources, Section 2 essentially requires that if there is a racially polarized voting and if a minority opportunity district can be drawn, then it must be drawn. So I think there's some legal issues that we need clarified about that. And if that's the case, then we kind of have to go with 2. But I'd just like to see more of Seaside together. That's because when I look at this map, and this is partly emotional from my point, we are, and I live there, we are the low income area, we are the renters, and we are being put into one particular, and we are the Latino based population. So I see a community of interest possibly, but my other emotional part says, I don't like to see Seaside as cut up. I mean, the way it was, 30% were down in District 2 and the rest was in 1. And so it's a big change. But
Yeah.
I'd just like to see as much of my city together as I can. And I realize it has to be bifurcated, but those are some of the issues that I think we're facing in this decision making.
I want to point out that it's the same split. It's just that a different group of Seaside is being put with Monterey. So before it was this part of Seaside or different part of Seaside going, that was more natural because it was geographically closer to Monterey. But it's the same third that would be, I mean,
I get the numbers. You flip, it's almost like you flip the numbers from 1 to 2. Yeah, I get that. That was, that's the only thing. I just think we just need to talk about what our rationale is for making the decisions we're making. So that's just my thinking about it.
Commissioner Oliver has her hand up.
I assumed we were kind of moving into the polling that was suggested. And, you know, I'm representing 4. At the same time, from a distance, Plan 2 appeals to me more. And one thing I think about is the possibility of increasing the diversity of the board itself. Because if you have a larger voice representing renters, a larger voice representing a different cultural community that might have different needs related to water, you just increase the possibility that that voice will result in a different kind of representation. So it appeals to me from that perspective.
I think Commissioner Eisenhardt is on top next.
Well, to answer Dave's question directly, absolutely Plan 2. What a great opportunity, right? To really fortify the Latinx community, apparently now also the renters community. We simply cannot pass this opportunity up. And the demographers, if I may say, I think have really zeroed in on something that's quite practicable to stay within our constitutional guidelines and our margins of error here below 10%. Yes, Dave, Plan 2 for sure.
Commissioner Fisher?
Well, I agree with the foregoing conclusions as well. I definitely like the changes that were made for Plan 2, but it seems to me we're trying at this time also decide between 2 and 3. Isn't that correct? I mean, we do have the third plan here. I was quite all right with having the La Mesa community be part of District 5 because I'm familiar with that area, and it's no more a part of Monterey, I don't believe, than it is a part of District 5 in characteristics. I mean, they're an isolated community, and I think they could go either way. So I don't have a problem in either configuration. Keep the triangle or change it to the Plan 3. Either of those are fine. And I like keeping 2's boundaries pretty close to what it should be for the whole city of Seaside and Sand City.
Great. Are there other commissioners?
Commissioner Malkin?
Yes, hi. So I agree with my fellow commissioners that just spoke before me on Plan 2. I do like that the renter community is finally being acknowledged, because whenever we talk about any redistricting or anything having to do with population, it always is about the minorities, and the fact that renters aren't encompass so many minorities as well as other people. I would hope that in future conversations, the demographer as well as my fellow commissioners will remember to treat the renters as a community of interest in anything that comes up in conversations in your city councils and otherwise, because it's just fact that they are the majority of the residents in most of our cities, and it's therefore very important that they be considered separately, even from minorities, because it's a larger demographic when you're talking about renters, but they are the majority. So I just wanted to point that out. But I'm also in favor of Plan 2. Thank you.
Commissioner Ishikawa?
I'm also in favor of Plan 2 or the modifications. I will say something that kind of echoes Commissioner Fisher. Looking at from the Division 5 perspective of a board member, you know, that's a very large district and it's difficult to cover to do campaigning. I'm okay. I'm done.
There's District 5 just has to be that way. It's a sparsely populated area compared to every place else. We're rural mostly.
I have one other question. When we're talking about Plan 2, are we also including this Plan 3 modification as a possibility?
Yeah, that's what I was hearing.
Yeah, okay.
Apart from
I like
Merlin's-
that better.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
For
I
my
think-
part, yes. Sorry.
And I think Merlene was kind of saying that the triangle probably didn't need to identify with Monterey because it's primarily La Mesa, but to the extent that there's any connection or affinity, trying to keep a city together does make some sense.
And it's easier for the register of voters too.
Is
And
it?
they're also military, and I would think they'd have some connection to the military in Monterey and
Yeah.
that connection into Monterey. Because they're mainly naval, aren't they? Mainly
Yeah,
naval
they have
personnel?
connection to the postgraduate school.
Right.
Yep.
So this is, has everybody, I'm sorry if I'm interrupting, have all the commissioners weighed in on the Plan 1 versus Plan 2, whether modified or not? Because I had a point to make if they have all weighed in.
I see Commissioner Law wanted to speak. If you're muted.
If this is a straw poll, I would certainly be in favor of Plan 2. I think it's very well done, and any modifications based around that one.
And then Commissioner Ishikawa again.
I don't have another comment. I'm sorry.
Okay, legacy hand. Okay, Commissioner Eisenhart.
Yeah, I was wondering, to all the commissioners, to Dave and to our demographers, would this be a good time to try to refine Plan 2 in 1 or 2 or 3 iterations? We've been trying to do it in real time a little bit with the Plan 2 Division 2, but would this be a good time to try to plan to come back to see the, if you will, micro changes to the modifications to Plan 2? Some one we saw about a half an hour ago, and then some modifications to that one. I think the only thing that might still be up in the air is if there are commissioners who, though they like Plan 2, are also preferring to see Monterey in 3 different divisions as opposed to 2. I'm not sure if that was clear, but if we could get one straw poll round on that issue, and if we were to come back, I think that would be the most efficient. So if everybody says yes on Plan 2, and yes, if it's viable, keep Monterey into 2 districts, not 3. Sorry, divisions, not 3. Then I think we have a couple of more iterations to look at that are quite fine-tuned. But I don't want to speak if I misunderstood somebody's position about that trifurcation issue. Does that make sense? I'm sorry.
I think Nancy would like to speak too. I just know she's been raising her hand.
Thank you. Many of the military have a choice to vote where they're living or in their home state, and many choose to keep their vote in their home state. So I think the La Mesa, I agree with that, is I don't think it matters too much where it is, but I actually like Plan 3 the best now that we've talked about it.
Yeah, and I guess in all of this, when we talk about minor tweaks, let's keep in mind that the numerology will change, that the smaller, more focused Division 2 will become Division 1. And then the bigger area that picks up the triangle now will be Division 2. And that'll just be consistent with the current director positions, yeah.
Oh, right, thanks, Dave. Yeah.
But I think you're right, Mark, that we're at that point then where the demographers know which palette they're working with, and they can just go back and tweak a little bit here and there and see if they can get better numbers.
If we could we just zero in on where Robin has some options here, just because you all have a better sense of what seems like good boundaries than we do. And is there a, Robin, could you even zoom in more? Like that area, is there a part of that area that would be good to split? Can you all see that? So right now, Robin, you want to talk about where we currently have that?
Yeah, so it's following Yosemite, and then it follows Wanda Avenue east to Mescal Street.
Well, actually above, right, what we actually have now is Yosemite to, what is that? Is that?
Broadway, this is Broadway right here.
So that's a nice boundary. So is there anything, if we don't use Broadway and we go down and take more of that into one, is there a
This
better?
area here.
No, because they like Yosemite, so
Oh, okay.
I'm just,
If you didn't want as much, you could try going Mescal, but that's not gonna get you very many people.
where, do you see?
Mescal is that windy road that goes up the
Mhm.
hill there, I
Right.
think.
Right here.
Yeah, but it's not gonna get you much population out of it unless it's just no way to do it.
Well, it's some, that might be a good thing. Let's look at that.
Is this what you had in mind? Moving this from 2 to 1?
Yeah, that would help.
Follows
That would
Mescal.
be great. But is that awkward to do? So the only reason we would be doing this was to get the numbers down a little bit. But you are within that 10% range, so you don't have to do that.
Yeah, so the piece that says 491, I don't know, the two big pieces, yeah. So that's Del Monte Manor primarily. And then below it is the elementary school and a park. So there's very little residential in that one, except along its eastern side. There's some single family homes.
Single family homes up Mescal.
Yeah. So you're not going to get much at all with the bottom parcel, but the bigger parcel is, as I said, Del Monte Manor. And I don't know, neighborhood wise, does it identify with the neighborhood above it? Which is,
I don't think so.
No.
yeah,
Where would it
Del
identify
Monte
with?
Manor is a low income area.
Low income
Yeah.
versus high income.
Yeah,
Okay.
they have a
Yeah.
nice view.
yeah, I didn't mean going up to the single family homes on the right, but I just can't remember what else is around there. I know King
There are
School.
small homes mostly.
What about where the 79 is? Robin, if you could zoom in more.
Mhm. Right here.
Yeah.
It's Ancon Street.
Those may be homes up in there. That may be where they have little courts, their courts there. Yeah, there's homes up in there.
And Sally Court, Maiden Court.
Yeah, those are all homes up in there. They're kind of homes similar to Mescal. That's kind of a neighborhood right there.
So that would bring District 1 to 2.3%, District 2 to 3.8.
So that's the right number, but
Yeah.
I don't know if that's worth it. If that seems like they belong with the area north of them, or do they seem like they belong with the area west?
I believe they belong more to the area of north.
Yeah, I agree.
Mm-hmm.
To the north?
Yeah.
Or
Oh,
just,
well,
yeah.
that would be good then with our numbers. So Robin, you want to click on that? Let that, so we
Taking this up here. as well?
just say yes to that.
Okay.
Let's show them what that would look like.
That
So
would be
that's what-
congruent. That's congruent.
can we find out what the numbers are for the percentage in Seaside now?
It's gonna be more. Well, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how fast we can do that. I think we're gonna have to come back to you with that. I was more concerned about the Latino percentage. Robin, I can't read your screen. What's the total Hispanic? Do you have that?
For which district too?
Yeah.
It's 57%.
Okay. That's very similar to what we had before. So it's just a matter of, it's sometimes a trade-off between using major roads, using neighborhood areas, and trying to maximize the community of interest. And that's where it's a judgment call. So it's we could bring this back and any other tweaks that we have. And you all, just to reiterate, you think Yosemite is the right boundary north of Broadway. Is that right?
Yes.
Everybody's in agreement on that?
No, I agree.
Okay.
If it would help, we can bring in the satellite view too, if it would help to see some of the housing in this area.
Can you also an ethnic breakdown again? Because I know there are African American in this area here, up on the top. And also
Yeah.
just, I think a lot of the people that are in the Muni system are up in there, but it's a whole different kind of area than where I live. Anyway, yeah.
Mm-hmm. You know what, I think next time we'll also, like we have the Latinx percentages, we can do that with the African American population, and that would be easy to do. And I think just to simplify things, we won't be showing you Plan 1. We'll just be showing you Plan 2 with the 18 people. Well, that may not be relevant anymore. Yeah, it will be relevant under Plan 2, but not under Plan 3. So we'll show you, be contrasting plans 2 and 3 and playing around with this division between 1 and 2. And we'll change the numbers of the districts. So District 2 is 1 and District 1 is 2.
And Dave, I'm sure I think I know what the answer is, but switching the 2-1 districts, obviously the reason is to preserve our existing board members, but that's okay. There's nothing wrong with doing that. That's not suspect for any reason.
Correct. It just nomenclature.
Okay, perfect. Well, this is Commissioner Eisenhardt again. I'm excited. I'm excited to see the refined Plan 3, to be honest.
Yeah, this is great. I think this is an improvement.
So is it safe to say then that Plan 1 is off the board now? We're just going to deal with Plan 2 and and whatever changes we want to make to that.
Yes, and we're going to come back with at least Plan 3 and 3A, where 3 would be like going along General Moore, and 3A like cuts it a little bit.
Okay.
So it may be that you decide that, and we'll look and see if there's anything else we can think of to do.
Well, and I echo the other, one of our other commissioners, getting a little bit more demographic, because I think we have the renter numbers, but our African-American numbers on the different plans, even if they're the slight modifications, 3A versus 3B, as well as the Latinx community. That would be good.
Okay.
Yeah, and just so you all know, the Seaside Municipal Water System is primarily in the is to the east side of the vertical break between these two voter divisions.
Oh,
It's almost that triangular shape. You know, basically it runs from LaSalle. It follows Yosemite, but it actually is one block over St. Helena and then Highland, but the Yosemite boundary is approximately the boundary. So between General Jim Moore and Yosemite. So it does split a little piece of the municipal water system, but I don't think in a way that we really need to be concerned.
So you mean it's to the west of Yosemite?
Yeah, so it's actually, if you go down to the three areas that we just played with that we moved. Yeah, so if you pick up the big one to the west and the two below it, now you're down at Hilby. That's, so from General Jim Moore to Hilby and then up the way, those three parcels would have been included. That's pretty much the municipal system. It does sneak up a little bit more, like one more block from there to Highland. And then it cuts over. So almost everything to the right of the green and red line is in the municipal water system. And there's a couple of blocks in there that aren't, but I can't think from a policy perspective why that would matter.
But do those people then within that district, that area you're speaking of, also vote on MPWD's issues?
They do.
Have a vote, right?
Yeah, they do have a vote. So it really doesn't matter where you put them. They'll be voting for an MPWD director. And then they'll also be voting for their own city council members.
but either way, they're going to be, if I to follow the commissioner's track, I think either way, they're a super minority of
Yes.
voters within either district, right? Whether it's 2 or 1. Sounds like it's a super minority. There's not any way you could fortify that. It doesn't, I don't think.
That's right. That's right.
Or mini minority.
Yeah, exactly. Not to mention, I'm not sure that they're in any way the type of protected class, the municipal user that we're looking at. But be that as it may, I'm not seeing a policy consideration either.
Yeah,
I don't think so. Yeah.
Well, okay, I'm excited. I'd like to see, along with 3A and 3B, that'd be great with some numbers, modified numbers on the population.
Yeah, I think it's great.
You know, we may have to prepare for the board meeting on the 21st before the 17th. Dave, is there anything we need about that? Would we just tell them?
yeah, you could actually hold back and then just present your PowerPoint at the board meeting without having distributed.
Okay.
So we can just tell the board that there will be a report from the demographers reporting progress to date. And that way, whatever you have for the 17th will be what you can use as a base for the 21st.
Okay.
Cool.
Great.
This is great. Great progress.
Yeah.
Okay, progress.
No, and as I said at the outset, there were some really good questions and communication going on between commissioners and Joelle and through Joelle to the demographers. So I appreciate all the work you're doing. This is good. Good stuff.
Thank you guys for all the work you're doing too to make this happen.
Yes,
I
thank
really
you so
appreciate it,
much.
especially you, Joelle. Thank you.
So with that, I think we are at a point where we can adjourn. Let me just make sure there was nothing else on the agenda.
Do we want to take public comment on item number 2?
Yes.
So if you have public comment on item number 2, please raise your hand. Do have one person who would like to make public comment before I invite her. Commissioners, are you able to see the timer? Okay, Connie, you may
Yeah.
present your comment.
Thank you. I'm not going to comment on number 2. I just want to praise you all for listening to each other and making good progress tonight. Thank you from the League of Women Voters, although I'm really just another citizen that votes on who runs in my district. So thank you very much.
All right,
Not seeing anybody
Joelle,
has,
seeing no
nobody
other
else with their hand. Correct.
then we will adjourn this meeting. And the next meeting is, as mentioned, the 17th. And we will see you all then. Thank you very much for your input.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.
Good night, thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Have a good night.